Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Lurzday Thursday podcast. I'm your host, Rudolph Lurs. So this is Lurs World. I don't know exactly what made me have the idea to start a podcast. As you can see, I have no fancy microphone in front of me. This is my home office, and I have no real background in entertainment. But I have listened to a number of podcasts, and I realized that many of them are simply people talking about things that they were interested in and sharing their ideas with their audience and exchanging ideas. And as a scholar and education professional, that appealed to me. So my name is Rudolph Lurs. I am a teacher and a debate coach. I work as an administrator as well at a private school, and I teach a few college courses at that school, so dual enrollment college courses. And I get awfully isolated at times because I administer an online division at our school, and I work primarily out of my home office right here in my basement. And I miss the daily interaction of sharing important ideas, and that's really what led me to this phenomenon I see of podcasts, which are, it's really a return to the old radio shows of yesteryear in the early 20th century. And it's cool to see that come full circle in a modern 24/7 news cycle, in a digitized and highly technical world. So I'm interested in seeing how it goes, and I'm excited to get your feedback if I'm not indeed speaking into the abyss. I'm hoping to do this every week on Thursday and make every Thursday a Lurzday Thursday. And also subject you all in the greater interwebs to the same cringeworthy commentary that many of my students receive. And it's a way for me to expand my reach beyond the students in my classroom. I've taught since 2007. So that means that roughly 1,200 to 1,400, thereabouts, in that range, 1,200 to 1,400 students have experienced my classes. And I think that by expanding that, by taking my classroom, if you will, and turning it into a podcast of things that I find interesting, that can have a positive result in a world that frequently is made up of noise. There's a lot of noise out there, and if anything else, I would like this 45 to 60 minutes once a week to be meaningful and to be real and authentic in a world that's frequently becoming more and more homogenized, especially by AI. So a lot of these thoughts, a lot of the stuff that you see, it's becoming very uniform because AI is standardizing so much of not just the content we see, but also how we write, how we express ourselves. And I would like this 45 to 60 minutes every week to be more real and authentic. We can talk about AI, but I don't want this content to be run by AI. As you can see, there's no fancy lighting effects here. My my notes on my computer are flashing in my glasses. I don't have, like I said, I don't have that fancy microphone, but I can, because this first segment of my weekly podcast is, I title it Highlights and Salutations. So this is normally where I would give a shout out to previous comments that have appeared on this channel, previous messages that I've received, and words from my advertisers. Let's start off with the words from advertisers on the Lurzday Thursday podcast. Let me check my notes here. There are none, because this is brand new. But if you would like to advertise on this channel, you are more than welcome to do so. I'm happy to provide some shout outs from companies and organizations that I think are cool. So you can be absolutely certain that any shout outs I give, check my follower count, it's pretty low. Any shout outs I give are truly authentic and not paid for by those advertisers, because I have none. So any products that I endorse are purely just my thumbs up and individual seal of approval. So, some background about myself. As I mentioned, I'm a teacher. I grew up in Sarasota, Florida. I moved there when I was 10, and before then, my childhood was spent in Crystal Lake, Illinois, outside of Chicago. I got my bachelor's degree in history with a minor in German from the University of Florida, and my master's in secondary education from that same institution. And after a few years teaching, I went to get my doctorate at the University of Pittsburgh and hold a doctorate in administrative and policy studies. And I'm presently out here in my basement in Spokane, Washington, sharing my thoughts with you. So if you are new, and everyone here should be relatively new, unless you know me, then you're used to hearing this anyways. But if you're new to this, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, some thoughts. After highlights and salutations, I normally begin my classes with a few dad jokes. I am a father. I have two lovely young daughters. They are 6 and 3, so they keep me very busy. I'm very tired by the end of the day. So, some dad jokes. Are you ready? They're particularly bad. Why does the Swedish Navy put barcodes on all of their ships? So when they return to port, they can Scandinavian. I like that one. I like that one a lot. It's normally my good go-to when I run into an old student, they ask me for a dad joke, and I have to think of one on the spot. Here's another one. Why do Spartans really dislike the morning? Why do Spartans, and Athenians for that matter, really despise the morning? They don't like it at all. Why? Because dawn is tough on Greece. One more. Just one more. I told my girlfriend that she drew her eyebrows on too high. She seemed surprised. That might be my favorite of all, which is why I told it last. Okay, where does that leave us? So I have taught in my lifetime everywhere from 6th grade all the way up through university level courses. So while I was at the University of Pittsburgh, I was a teaching fellow, and I taught social foundations of education there. I have also taught college communication and an intro to education course. And I've taught all English courses, English 9 through 12, actually 6th and 7th grade English as well, and social studies courses, including AP European History. And for a long time, I was a German teacher. So I taught German 1 all the way through AP German. So I am at my certification to teach English, German, and all social studies courses. So I enjoy the exchange of knowledge more than anything else. And no matter what subject you are teaching, it really comes down to building a community that kids feel safe and kids are free to express their beliefs, and there's good rapport and class community and respect for each other, along with respect for their instructor and respect for themselves. So that's how I built my classrooms over the years. And I normally, in addition to telling my terrible dad joke, I normally like to have a quote of the day. And in German, that was Das Zitat des Tages, the quote, the quotation of the day. And this first one for this podcast comes from Sigmund Freud, who noted in the original German, it goes something like this. Gegen Angriffe kann man sich wehren. Gegen Lob ist man machtlos. Against attacks, one can defend oneself. Against praise, one is powerless. And there's something very important to be taken from that quote, that we are equipped psychologically to defend oneself. We want to defend ourselves, and in a way our shields are always up. We expect attacks. Look how people interact with strangers in particular. We're wary. We wonder what intentions that someone might have. And we really expect the worst out of people rather than expecting the best out of them. So Freud was well aware of this, and also was well aware of the way to get past those shields. And the easiest way to get past those shields is praise. Because as we are expecting attacks, when we receive praise, we can, no matter how humble you are, you can play it off as, oh, that's no big deal. It was really nothing. Oh, I'm embarrassed now. You play it off, and you can do your best to play it off. But no matter how strong your humility is, we are very proud individuals as human beings. That pride is the central vain sin that we all possess. We are all proud individuals, and we suffer more from pride than anything else. So when that pride is fed through praise, it's very hard to deflect. So that's a very important reminder that it's hard not to receive a inflated sense of self and an inflated sense of even power when we feel that, when we receive that praise. So it's important, no matter how hard it is, to stay humble, because the universe has a way of humbling those who are too proud. Praise goes a long way to doing that, and while it's nice to get it, it's lovely to receive it. It also must be taken through the filter of humility, or much like Jeff Winger in an episode of Community, it can really overwhelm the ego. It's a very good episode of Community. I'll be talking about that show later on in this first episode. So, good quote from Sigmund Freud. Against attacks, one can defend oneself. Against praise, one is powerless. And even though it might seem that way, it's important to take that through the filter of humility. Okay, next segment. Where are we at for time? As a teacher, I'm always obsessed with time in terms of when to go from segment to segment or activity to activity. 14:52, when we are almost right on schedule. So why am I so obsessed with time? I heard an old statistic, really an old equation for when to switch up activities, because it's common in many classrooms that's whether it's 45 minutes or 90 minutes or 60 minutes, however long the class is, normally just stick to 1 to 2 things and just power right through. That might not be the best approach. One of the common equations that I heard is take your student's age and then divide that age by, or multiply, sorry. Take that age and multiply it by 2. And that's the max amount of time you can spend on any one activity before it's best to move on to the next. So if you're dealing with 6-year-olds, the max length for any one segment is really 12 minutes or so, which is why you have to rotate so quickly to keep attention. And that's why if you ever sat through a meeting, if you are 30, and really an hour is the breaking point where you would prefer to do something else, mix it up. So if you've ever been subjected to a truly long meeting or a long task, that's why it starts to feel monotonous. Hence, switching it up with segments. That's what I try to do here, as I view this as an extension of my classrooms, both now and of the past. So instead of teaching any particular subject matter, since I have full dominion over my own podcast, I am treating you all to things that I find interesting each week with these segments. So you'll have dad jokes, you'll have a quote of the day, my thoughts on that quote of the day, many of which came from my old classrooms. And then the next segment, which is the Lurs World Rankings, where I power rank things that I think are the top 5 and the bottom 5 of that particular week. So this is just my random rankings. There's no mathematical formula, there's no committee, there's no algorithm. It's just my top 5 and my bottom 5. And we will start with the Lurs World Rankings top 5. So, going from 5 all the way to 1, we're going to start with crab dip. Crab dip enters the power rankings as the number 5 on my top 5 list. I love Thanksgiving. It's my favorite holiday of the year. Thanksgiving and New Year's Day are actually my 2 faves. Didn't used to be that way. I used to enjoy New Year's Eve. I used to like going out. I love now a more quiet New Year's Eve with my family, and then a great New Year's Day, because both Thanksgiving and New Year's Day are associated with cooking in my house. And I just love this cooking, enjoying the time with family and friends, and not the pressure associated with Christmas. Because let's be honest, when you're a parent, Christmas is a performative event with a lot of pressure. There's often travel involved. You gotta pick the right gifts. You gotta reveal it's you are doing it for the kids because you want to make sure that Christmas remains magical. But Thanksgiving is just about, it's a much lower pressure event, in my opinion. And I love it. I love cooking. And on Christmas and on Thanksgiving and New Year's Day, I make my crab dip. I take a recipe, I modified it from one that my mom made growing up, and it came out fire. It came out awesome. Lit live fire. That's my crab dip, and I love it every year. It's so satisfying to put that on the charcuterie table. That's normally one of the first things I cook, because that goes on the charcuterie table while everything else is cooking for the Thanksgiving dinner. So, power ranking number 5 on the list, crab dip. Crab dip is awesome, and I wish I should make it more than once a year. And maybe if I ever get around to it and add a social media addition to this YouTube channel, I'll post a recipe for my famous crab dip. And you can also serve it with your families. So number 5 is crab dip. Number 4 on the list, quality soap. Now, for most of my working life, it's been budget has been pretty tight. We're doing a little bit better now. I still got a lot of loans to repay, especially my wife, who's got med school loans, and I've got my own loans that I got receiving my doctorate. So it's still pretty tight, but not nearly as tight as it was when we were both on teacher salaries. If you don't know, doctors, when they are in residency and even in fellowship, they're doctors, they're full MDs, but yet their pay is still their pay is similar to teacher pay. So they're doing doctor work with doctor loans on teacher pay. And my wife recently became an attending physician, and in her role as a surgeon. And I'm an administrator. We're both doing pretty well. But for a long time, it was super tight. And when the budget's tight, you just can't justify spending the money on soap. But it's so important, especially if you're living in a northern climate like I am. In the wintertime, good grief. My skin gets so dry. It's so dry every winter. And if you're using cheap soap, it's rough. It gets extremely rough. But this year, I've shout out to Dr. Squatch and North Road Soap Company. So one of my old friends from Vermont has her own soap company, and it's great. And Dr. Squatch is great. I use them for body wash. And it's hard to justify spending $8 to $15 on soap. But in reality, I'd say it's worth it. I wish I bought that. I wish I had bought that kind of soap even before I had any sort of extra money in the budget, because it really leads to having to spend less on things like lotion or cortisone cream later. Because when you get those dry skin flare-ups, you got to spend all this money now on cream and cortisone 10 or whatever you use, and it doesn't really work well. So now you're spending extra money and you're miserable. But with Dr. Squatch, North Road soap, man, it's much better. I mean, my hands are still dry. I use I think it's called O'Keefe's hand cream. That helps, but the hands are still dry because I've washed them a lot. I have young children, so always washing my hands. When you're always washing your hands, they get dry, especially in the winter. So my hands are still hurting, but I'm not I don't have the dry skin anywhere else anymore because I use quality soap. So shout out here in the midst of a cold winter, even with the heat running, quality soap, awesome. Really awesome stuff. So North Road soap, Dr. Squatch. I saw a Mike Tyson commercial with Dr. Squatch. That's how I found him. So Dr. Squatch, if you want to know how your targeted ads eventually found me, it was Mike Tyson, who seemed to be suffering from a lot of the same dry skin that I had. And if Iron Mike endorsed it, I picked it up. And I cringed because it was $8 for a thing of body wash. I think that price with inflation is now all the way up to $14. Hurts, but worth it. So worth it. Next on the top 5 on my power rankings this week. Kilroy's Indianapolis. Kilroy's wings. My goodness, those things were good. I think I was telling the bartender there, I think her name was Jillian. I was there on a work trip, and Jillian, the bartender, brought in these wings, and I said, I'm going to give you both a shout out this week, because Kilroy's Indianapolis wings were some of the best I've had, and I've been searching a long time for really good wings. And I love buffalo wings. They're my favorite thing. But in many places, I've been stuck at Buffalo Wild Wings, which are good. It's a nice B minus wing is sometimes all you need because you know it's going to be a B minus wing. It's a big chain. You know it's going to be a okay wing. But I want more than a B minus. I'm not looking for a guaranteed B minus. I want A wings. I want A plus wings because I love wings. And Kilroy's in Indianapolis had amazing wings. Got them extra crispy. They finish them on the grill. Got a big, nice, satisfying crunch, and the sauce was awesome. So I was at a conference in Indianapolis recently, and I stopped into Kilroy's. I got some awesome wings, and now I'm giving them the shout out. You're number 3 on my power rankings this week. Kilroy's wings. Fire. Love it. And I'm hoping to find a good place with that kind of quality on their wings in here in Spokane. Hal's in Pittsburgh also had great wings up there in the Westview, Ross Township area. That's where I lived getting my doctorate. They had great wings, but it's been a decade since I had wings that were that good. Then I stumbled across those, man. Anytime you get great wings, you're just happier. I'm a simple man. It doesn't take much. Next on the list, the Community rewatch. So I watched the show Community. It was an NBC show when it came out. And a lot of shows, when you go back and rewatch them, they're not as good. Like How I Met Your Mother, ooh, it seemed really good when you were first watching it, when I was first watching that in my 20s and 30s, but now I'm here at 40. North of 40, How I Met Your Mother does not have the same rewatchability. It's not as like there are some moments that are just like, ooh, Barney is even worse on the rewatch. And Ted is even more annoying. But Community holds. Community, it was just as funny, just as good on the rewatch as it was on the initial. So number 2 on my power rankings this week, the rewatch of Community it's just as good as I remember it. And it's nice. We all have that deep nostalgia for the way things were, the people we used to be. And we long for that, like a nice comfortable blanket on the sofa. And it was nice to have Community again. I think I noted in I haven't really been an active contributor on YouTube. I think in a previous video I said that music was a time machine. And it takes you back to where you were when you first heard it, or when you heard it at particular moments. So listening to old music has that powerful nostalgia associated with it. That's why I really enjoy music when I'm driving in the car, because I like that nostalgia. The car rides are stressful enough. They should be a place for enjoyment. So Community, great show. So if you have not watched Community lately, that still is a great show, even in 2025. Still awesome. And final top 5, I'm a data geek. I love data. I love analyzing data. I love spreadsheets. They're great. I keep a fitness spreadsheet, and that motivates me to do more fitness, so I can make sure that each of those boxes is checked off. So I like being the data geek I am. I'm relatively new to streaming for music, and I was pleasantly surprised by Spotify Wrapped. I mean, I hadn't really been into Spotify until my car until cars stopped accepting CDs. I was like my dad. I would just listen to sports radio or news radio, AM stations. But Spotify was a game changer, especially Spotify Premium and not having those ads come on every 90 seconds, it seemed. That gave me full control over what I listen to, and it's wherever I am. So that was really nice. And then seeing the Spotify Wrapped, seeing all that data was interesting. I saw a lot of my kids' music. So I got a lot of those artist shout outs were just things my kids like to listen to because the kids are in a car a lot. That's oftentimes when I'm driving, was when the kids are there. But seeing that the Spotify Wrapped, that was really cool. So it also introduced me to things that I wasn't even aware existed. Like my favorite genre. I was thinking everything is just jazz. Because I like to listen to a lot of jazz, especially when I'm stressed when I'm driving. It calms it down. But apparently my taste, my number one genre is something called lo-fi. It's got like different sounds associated with it, more of a calming pace. And Spotify figured that out about me, and that led me to look up more lo-fi music. So I've been in a musical cave for the last 20 or 30 years. My musical age on that Spotify Wrapped was 68. I do like a lot of 70s rock, even though I'm not that old. I'm not 68. Even though sometimes I feel it. But the Spotify Wrapped was a really cool way to see all the data laid out in front of me. And it led me to new music. So thank you, Spotify. And if you want to advertise, please give me some money. And I'll gladly give you more shout outs and tell everyone what's on my Spotify list this week. But Spotify Wrapped, it's a cool thing. And I'm into it. I'm into it. So that's my top 5, which leads to the next segment. The next segment is bottom 5. We're a little behind on timing, but that's okay. I really got into those top 5. Let's talk bottom 5. All right. So, bottom 5 in the power rankings. The most annoying things of the week to me. The worst. Locker room initiators. I go to the gym a lot, and I'm not a fan of randos just talking to me in the locker room. I'm especially not a fan of that when I'm looking around the locker room and there's open lockers all over the place. And given all those open lockers all over the place, I pick one that doesn't have a lot of neighbors, right? So I get back from my workout and I know that all those lockers were vacant when I left. And I come back and there's a lock right next to mine. The locker room's still empty and someone chose the locker right next to mine. And then he's there and trying to talk to me in the empty locker room. And it's like, there's all this space here, man. Just pick any of those lockers over there. I definitely don't. I teach communication as well. If you are at initiation as a stage of conversation, my shields are firmly up because not only are you talking to me when in a place I don't really want to talk to people, but also I know for a fact that you chose the locker right next to another locker, which leads me to think that you wanted to talk to somebody in here. Now, maybe that's your only interaction with people, but if that's your only interaction with people, let's just a piece of advice as a communication instructor. There are better ways. You could talk to people in the gym itself. There are even like collaborative classes, group fitness classes. That's the place to talk to people and make friends. Not in the locker room, and definitely not in an empty locker room where you pick the only other locker right next to another lock. So, like maybe it's just one to friend. I'm not looking. I was polite. I wasn't mean to the guy. But I wasn't going to get into any deep conversation with anybody in that space, and I was annoyed by that. So congratulations, locker room conversation guy. You have now entered the bottom 5 of the week. You are the worst of the week, number 5. So not the worst, but you're pretty low on there. Not the place to initiate a conversation. I guess a urinal would be worse, but that's not great. So, bottom 5. Number 5. Number 4 on the bottom 5 list. Oh, man, especially in the holidays. And I know that I don't want to put this here, but as a parent, I can't keep up with the endless Spirit Weeks. My 3-year-old's daycare's got Spirit Weeks. The 6-year-old's elementary school, they got Spirit Weeks. And they got Spirit Weeks for everything. There were Spirit Weeks for homecoming. There's Spirit, I guess that's more at the high school level. That is the only Spirit Week I was aware of. But there's Spirit Weeks for, it's seemingly every month there's some sort of Spirit Week going on. And if you don't get the email, then your kid is mad at you because the kid goes to school. Everyone else is in whatever, like pajama day or superhero day or sports day. And they're like, well, why didn't you put me, why didn't you tell me? And I'm sorry, I can't keep up with them. So I know you're trying to build community. I love community. As a school teacher, I understand. But you can't have so many. Especially if you got kids at multiple schools, it's hard to keep up. So, sorry, Spirit Weeks, you are in the bottom of the power rankings. You're a bottom 5, number 4. Next, cold and flu season. Cold and flu season. It's never fun. That's one benefit I get from working in my basement primarily is that, and working remote, teaching remote, I teach live, so I'm on the big screen in class, but it's still, I'm not dealing with the endless waves directly of cold and flu season, but I'm still exposed to them through travel, through my kids. They come with colds and flus all the time. We do our best. They get their flu shot. You do what you can. But it's still kids are going to get sick, humans are going to get sick. Winter's a tough time for that, and it's firmly in the bottom 5 this week. So, speedy recovery to all those who are experiencing it, and keep yourselves healthy. Hand sanitize, wash your hands, get your rest, get hydrated, because it is like Thanos in those Marvel films, inevitable, and it's not something I look forward to. And so be aware, especially in your interactions with people. Maybe that's why I'm polite. I do my best to stay polite and friendly, even if I'm not pleased. Maybe locker room guy's got some kids at home who are sick. Maybe he's just recovered. He's got cabin fever. Whatever people are experiencing out there in the wild, you got to have some grace and empathy, even if it annoys you. So I try my best to be friendly and polite, because I don't know what people are dealing with. I know that is something that most people, if they haven't dealt with it yet, they are going to deal with it soon, and it's very unpleasant. So, cold and flu season, bottom 5. Number 3. Bottom 5, number 2. Lane Kiffin, the coach at Ole Miss. In a very good position at Ole Miss. He's been there 6 years. Led Ole Miss to the University of Mississippi. Led Ole Miss to the best season in school history. They are almost assured of a playoff spot in college football. So they're going to be in the playoff. They almost made the SEC championship. So very likely to be in the playoff position to compete for a national championship. He's earning millions a year. He's not hurting for money. But in the last few weeks, he's contributed to an almost LeBron-esque, like LeBron of the decision. When he went to Miami, that was a thing a long while back now. But it had LeBron vibes to it because he sort of fed it. And he's going to make his decision after the rivalry game against Mississippi State. And I'm here at my desk, you can see, like my tribal loyalties belong with the University of Florida. My doctorate comes from Pitt. I was in my 30s getting my doctorate at Pitt. Late 20s, early 30s. So I wasn't there to, I was there to work. That was more of a workplace. But my college days and tribal loyalty reside at the Gators. So they were one of the teams that were in the mix to sign Lane Kiffin to be their new head football coach. And he milked it. He said he was going to consider where to go. He was going to do a lot of praying on it. And he eventually chose to leave Ole Miss for Louisiana State University, LSU. And they gave him a huge contract. And he left poorly. Wanted his coordinators to be on the plane with him to LSU, or they wouldn't have a job the next year. Some of that was pushed back. He relented a little bit. Some of those Ole Miss coordinators are still allowed to coach with their team through a playoff, as they should. But he went to chase the next best thing, and he burned a lot of bridges. And now he's a villain in a place that he should be a hero. And he's upset. Why? He's like, man, I didn't like all that negativity I got leaving here. Like, they booed him at the airport. They put all of his clothes out in the street, like a jilted spouse would just throwing all the clothes of their ex out in the street. But look up that photo. It's pretty funny. Like, you'd see a whole rack of suits just hanging out in the road outside the offices. And it didn't have to be that way. And there's a debate going on of whether he's doing the best thing for his family and taking an even bigger paycheck than the one he had at Ole Miss. Perhaps a better chance to compete for national championships. But he was in a place where he could compete for a national championship this year. You can compete this year. And too often, I think that ambitious people are unaware of the reality that we live in. If Lane Kiffin really thought he could leave Ole Miss and just get a handshake and a thank you, Coach Kiffin, and then go off to a rival school, or continue coaching through the playoff and then go to a rival school, that's lunacy. No one's going to be happy for you when you abandon them when you're having the best season in school history. You got to see it through. And if it wasn't possible for you to finish the season and still take the LSU job, then there's only one real move, even with that opportunity that's there for the taking. And the only good move was to stay at Ole Miss. And that's hard for ambitious people to realize. That the next best thing, the next door that's out there is not one to run through just because it's there. That true awareness in life comes from knowing that there's an intersection between opportunity and timing. Would you leave your significant other or partner just because somebody you once liked is now available? If you were ambitious, like I wonder if Lane Kiffin would you abandon your family because your old crush is now single and wants to talk to you? The answer is no. The answer is no, because the timing is wrong. And you have a lot more peace in your life when you recognize that if the timing is wrong, then it's not meant to be. And that's okay. You do as President Theodore Roosevelt once said, I think that President Obama quoted Theodore Roosevelt saying this at one point, all we can do is the best we can with what we have where we are. All we can do is the best we can with what we have where we are. That's all we could really do in life. Does that mean that some folks will never ascend to the highest echelons? Yes, because the timing's not there. And the right move, the ethical move, the most logical move is to stay. So having that awareness could have prevented that mistake. And I'd like to read from one of my favorite poems, because this is one where I think that Coach Kiffin took the wrong path. This is The Road Not Taken. This is from poet Robert Frost, and it's not just about lamenting a decision that you didn't make, a path that you didn't choose. It's really about opportunity cost, that every decision, every road you go on leads one way and other doors are shut behind it. So it's human nature to wonder about what might have been. The past tense subjunctive. What could have been? What would have happened if I had done this? That's not the right attitude to take, just like it's not the right attitude to take to just seek future roads if the timing is wrong. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now, oftentimes choices are a coin flip. And oftentimes they're not. But we always wonder what might have been. And I think Coach Kiffin was really wondering what might have been if he had not gone to LSU, and he didn't want that regret to linger, to bite at him. So he took that less traveled road. But really, it's not a less traveled road. I don't think Robert Frost would high-five Coach Kiffin for making that move to LSU, because in doing so, you abandon the place where you are. A place that embraced you as coach, giving you all the support. Not a lot of college coaches stay in the same place and have that support for 6 years. And they would have kept him however long he wanted to stay. And LSU, they have a habit of firing coaches, even when they do decently well. So that opportunity, while tempting, in my mind, it was an easy no. So Coach Kiffin, as a former football coach myself, I never had the opportunities you have. But that's one where I would firmly shut that door and sleep just fine afterwards. If it's meant to be, the timing will be right. You have to do the best you can with what you have where you are, and you're not doing that right now. So Coach Kiffin, bottom two. But not bottom one. Bottom one are the AI fraudsters, and I see it flooding the internet and social media. All this AI slop, I've heard it called. We'll have more malicious AI efforts. You see it in the after effects of a major disaster. Like there was one that had like the Disney mascot Pluto carrying a small child in a flooded Disney World when Florida was hit by a major storm. It's AI generated. It's garbage. And it's designed to get clicks, to get likes, to get engagement, because each of those leads to more money. And there are folks out there who are just generating all this slop to earn money on garbage, and some of it, and absolutely knowing it's garbage, and capitalizing on people's curiosity because they're going to click on things that either scare them or they're going to click on things that interest them. And you got folks just sharing it, and becomes it's a way to exacerbate the misinformation highway, which is, I don't know. It's the internet has improved in many ways, but what is out there right now in the wild is gross. And those who are making money off the AI slop and knowingly passing along misinformation to make a buck, terrible. Number one on my power rankings on the worst things out there this week that I've just for this segment. Garbage. Horrible. I taught Dante's Inferno in my English classes, and Dante put the fraudulent below the violent in his rings of the Inferno. And the punishments for the fraudulent were worse, because if you lost your mind and accidentally killed somebody in a bar fight because you're just violent and wrathful, that's bad, right? But if you knowingly defrauded people, in Dante's mind, that was worse. And I agree with you, Dante. The fraudulent are terrible people because they're doing so with eyes wide open, fully aware, and seeking it out. And that's how you're making your living? Bottom of the bottom 5 this week in the Lures World Rankings. All right. So we are a little low on time here. I got into it a little bit on those Lures World Rankings, which brings us to the Lures World News. Things that I think are fun this week, like positive news stories in a world full of both AI slop, AI misinformation, just general weirdness that's out there, and also just negative news events. The old adage is, if it bleeds, it leads. We're overwhelmed by bad things on our news feed. That's why people doom scroll. They're scrolling through it and just feeling bad. So I want my 60 minutes to be more happy. Even the bottom 5, they're my thoughts on them. Interesting thoughts, I think. I hope. So I want my Lures World News to be thought-provoking, things and also positive. Doing my best to keep these absolutely positive. So, first Lures World News. Twisted Track, 5 years in business. Twisted Track is a brewery that my wife and I frequented when we were in Roanoke, Virginia. So congratulations to Twisted Track. Great place to bring the kids. They have a lot of good live music shows as well. Love Twisted Track. Even had my my daughter's birthday party at Twisted Track. And they've made it 5 years. That's a big milestone for a brewery. So, good for you. Twisted Track, 5-year anniversary. Remember, I spent my childhood in Crystal Lake, Illinois. I'm much more of a fan of, as I mentioned, the Florida Gators, college football. And if you look behind me, you see a Nottingham Forest scarf. I like Premier League soccer as well. I've been a Nottingham Forest fan since the early 2010s, back when they were in the championship, the second division of English football. And now they're in the Premier League. So I'm not really big into NFL football, but I do have a soft spot for the Bears, and they've been terrible for a long time. But they are now the number 1 seed at the moment, the number 1 seed in the NFC. 9-3. They just beat the Eagles. They didn't just beat the Eagles. They defeated this annoying play that the Eagles like to run. It looks more like a medieval scrum, a rugby like battle than it does an actual football play. where to gain in short yardage situations, they got a quarterback who could squat 500 pounds. He's a beast. So the Eagles quarterback is very good at it, and they've run it very successfully, and no team has been able to stop it. They even had a vote among owners of whether or not to ban this play because it doesn't even look like football. It's like everybody lines up real tight, and then they push the quarterback. It's called the tush push because they push him in the rear end, and they just sort of like grind forward until everybody just falls with momentum, and you gain the 1 to 2 yards you're looking for. And no team has figured out how to stop it, but the Bears stopped it cold. So good job, Chicago. Beat that medieval play. You defeated it, and now you're, at the moment, number 1 seed in the NFC. Might not last. I don't anticipate it lasting. They weren't expected to be this good this year, but it's a good story. Good for you, Chicago. And finally, my third Lurs World Rankings item is Sizzlers and Chi-Chi's, some old restaurants. Again, embracing that nostalgia, giving it a big nostalgia hug. Sizzlers and Chi-Chi's. These are restaurants from my childhood. They went out of business. Chi-Chi's very poorly. They had a major health incident at some of their restaurants. Probably rightly so, they went out of business. Sizzlers more faded away. But these were icons of my childhood. They were near every shopping mall. And Sizzlers is making a comeback. They've gotten the old branding back. If one opens up by me, I will definitely go back to Sizzlers. Treat my kids to that same sort of experience. Because I loved that when I was a kid. And I love Chi-Chi's too. And they're both coming back. Chi-Chi's is not quite there yet. I want to say that they're anticipating an opening. They may or may not do it. I hope you do. Sizzlers is fully on its way back. So, positive nostalgia fuel with Chi-Chi's and especially Sizzler returning. And I really hope Sizzler, you open one up here. I'd love that. Because that was like a treat back in the day. So, Sizzler, really good. Normally I have a Forest Corner where I talk about all things Nottingham Forest, but we're low on time, so we'll push that to next Lurzday, Thursday, to give yourself something to look forward to. Sean Dyche has righted the ship for Forest. Nottingham Forest was really struggling, and in the relegation zone, they've had a good run under Sean Dyche, bringing back old school tactics. They're playing hard, they're winning, and when they're not winning, at least they're competitive. So Forest is on the ascendancy, and I love it to see it. And we'll talk more Forest football and specifics when there's more time in next week's show. Art and Literature Corner. Things that I find interesting in art, literature, and film. Speaking of doom and gloom, Ken Follett is one of my favorite authors. Wrote Pillars of the Earth, among many, many other books. Love Ken Follett, great writing. Wrote Never about nuclear war. Great read. I read that on the airplane ride over to the conference. So many pages you wouldn't expect it to go by so fast, but I couldn't put it down. So Never, great book from Ken Follett. I liked it even better in House of Dynamite, which was also a good watch on Netflix. House of Dynamite was pretty good. Having just read Never, and then seeing House of Dynamite, it's like, man, it's like, are we really that negative? This is what we're producing lately. But yeah, that's some good art and some good film and some good literature can come out of which like dystopia. When things are bad, like your mind can go to where how it can get even worse. But the Never and House of Dynamite, both good watches. I mean, pray that never, naturally, pray that such an occurrence never happens, because it'll mean the end of all things. And I don't know why humans like to go there, but we've been doing it a long time. Dante's Inferno has sold many, many more copies than Purgatory or Paradise, because people are interested in the worst. They always have been. So that's where a lot of It's nothing new that people go to in those directions. But if you're looking for good watches, if you like good dystopian items, Never by Ken Follett's good, and House of Dynamite is a powerful political thriller where you look at what if. All right, closing thoughts. I'm a little over time, so thank you for bearing with me. Closing thoughts. It's easy in a world of noise to think that adding to it is just simply screaming into the abyss. The void. Tossing in a bucket into the deep ocean. But yet it could be more. And if no one watches this, I'm just as happy making it. Because for those who do, welcome. And I hope I provided you a place for this brief time that we're together for 1 hour a week. I hope that it was a positive hour. And I hope you return. And it seems that, especially in a disconnected world, that any sort of attempt at engagement is futile. But I don't think it is. I think that even in this world of AI, of noise, of negative things on the newsfeed, I think that even in this world, there's still some positive to be gained. And that positive comes from real, authentic thoughts and interactions. And that starts with me. For me, it starts with me. For you, it starts with you. So have that conversation. Talk with your friends. Make some friends. Hopefully not by putting a lock right next to someone else in the locker room, but hopefully make friends in a more positive way and a more social way. Because social engagement, meeting real people, that's where it really comes. That's what it really comes down to. So, in a disconnected world, I'm aiming to connect. I'm aiming to produce a product that is educational, informative, and entertaining at the same time in a positive way. Or much like a good workout, you feel good when you leave the gym. And you feel good when you close the podcast. So, welcome. Hope I provided some entertainment. Hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you next week. And may every one of your Thursdays be a Lurzday Thursday. See you next Thursday.